So I want to talk a little bit this morning about Bankei, who some of you are probably familiar with, um, a well-known and somewhat eccentric Japanese Zen teacher. And there's a book called Crazy Clouds. I don't know if any of you have come across it. Um, and it is about eccentric, sort of out of the usual mold Zen teachers. Bankei's in there, EQ's in there, Chow Chow's in there. So a lot of very wonderful teachers who were also, I'm not going to say eccentric, they were just different in their approach to Zen. Crazy clouds. So Bankei qualifies as a crazy cloud. And I'm going to come back to that. But I'm going to read a koan that has nothing to do with Bankei and everything to do with Bankei. Okay? So this is the koan Thinking Neither Good Nor Evil, which many of you are familiar with. The sixth patriarch was once pursued by the monk Myo as far as Mount Dayu. The patriarch, seeing Myo coming, laid the robe and the bowl on a rock and said, "This robe represents the faith. How can it be competed for by force? I will allow you to take it away." Myo tried to lift it up, but it was as immovable as a mountain. Terrified and trembling in awe, he said, "I came for the Dharma, not the robe. I beg you, lay brother, please reveal it to me." The patriarch said, "At the very moment you were chasing after me, thinking neither good nor evil, what was the primal face of monk Myo?" In that moment, Myo suddenly attained deep realization, and his whole body was covered with sweat. In tears, he bowed and said, "Besides the secret words and secret meanings you have just revealed to me, is there anything else deeper yet?" The patriarch said, "What I have now preached to you is no secret at all. If you reflect on your own true face, the secret will be found within yourself." Myo said, "Though I have been at Obai with the other monks, I have never realized what my true self is. Now, thanks to your instruction, I know that it is like a man who drinks water and who knows for himself whether it is cold or warm. Now, lay brother, now you, lay brother, are my master." The patriarch said, "If that's the way you feel, let us both have Obai for our master. Be mindful and hold fast to what you have realized." It's a wonderful and very important koan, and really makes a number of essential points, one of which I'm going to come back to. But now I want to segue away from that and talk about Bankei. Who was Bankei? Well, Bankei was a Japanese Zen teacher. And his teaching and his career as a teacher were distinguished in two ways, or at least two. One was that his teaching was extraordinarily simple, to the point of, I would say, being repetitive. If you read Bankei's talks, you'll find almost all of them make exactly the same points. A little bit different ways of expressing the same essential focus. The other thing that was unique about Bankei was that he taught the common people. He went out into the countryside and talked with farmers and shopkeepers, and he ended up drawing huge audiences to the simplicity and the clarity of his Dharma. But that was unlike many other teachers who had large temples, large practice centers, big, and were cultivating the wealthy as patrons. So, some things haven't changed in a few hundred years. But Bankei was out there with ordinary people. He was teaching to ordinary people, and they loved him. Well, it's kind of interesting because the other, and kind of at some point in the discussion, we might come back to this, his question is kind of like Zen in this country, in this time, does not attract people typically from working class backgrounds, right? People that are practicing Zen, by and large, are more educated and more affluent. And no, I don't know the reasons that why that is. We might say, well, those are the people that are suffering the most. Shouldn't they want, like right now they're losing their food. Oh my God, there's awful things happening. Wouldn't they want a spiritual practice, a spiritual home to help them in these troubled times? Well, the answer is, no, at least as we see it, not. Complex socioeconomic reasons, probably, but to me, it's a little disappointing that we can't reach a broader audience for a practice that's got so much potential to be liberating, so much potential to help people live in the context of difficulties and challenges and suffering. But I'm going to wind the clock back in the context of this to the earliest days of Treetop. Treetop as a Zen center did not exist at the time that I'm talking about. And these two teachers, Steph and Margaret Barragato, had just arrived in Maine. And they lived in Brewer for a very short time, but then they purchased a house in Orono where they were for several years. And so this occurred. I found them online. Many of us, I guess that's how we find Zen teachers these days online. Uh, and went the first week that when I first got in touch with them, they said, "Well, we're moving from Brewer to Orono, but we'll be sitting in Orono on in 2 weeks. Come and join us." So I did. And so in those days, the sangha was 5 of us initially. And it goes back to kind of what I'm talking about. So of the 5 of us, 2 were college professors. One of whom many of you know, Peter Harris, and the other was a fellow that was a professor of geospatial mathematics at UMO. And then of course, I was there. A behavioral health administrator at that point. And then there was a fellow, Jamie, not at all related to the woman Jamie, who's one of my successors, but a man, Jamie. And I actually don't know what he did. But he was somebody who was college educated and he may not have been. It almost seems to me that he was a craftsman or something. I don't remember. And then there was Bob. What about Bob? Bob was a trucker and a fascinating gentleman. He had lived alone in the woods of Aroostook County for 7 years. And he drove a truck. So we called him Trucker Bob. Everybody loved him. He had the most simple, direct grasp of the Dharma. No bullshit. All the rest of us had our bullshit. But Bob, right to it. His statements were so insightful. But eventually he moved on. I don't know why. and we lost our sort of single working class Zen practitioner. And in a way, again, it was just, in my mind, a great loss because he had such a simple and clear understanding of the Dharma. That makes me think in many ways that those of us who are highly educated, it's actually a handicap when it comes to Zen. We can get more elaborate and entwined in our thinking and our machinations and so on and so forth. And Bob didn't have a problem with that. Reality, there it is. So I don't know why there aren't more Bobs, but and maybe a discussion for another time. But Bankei managed to attract those people who were farmers, people who had dirt under their fingernails, people who were shopkeepers, the sort of the Japanese proletariat, if you will, who came out to hear his teachings. So remarkable. So, and maybe it has something to do with the simplicity of Bankei. Bankei was very clear. And had a theme to his teaching that almost never changed. If you read a half a dozen of Bankei's talks, you'll go, wow, they're all saying the same thing the same way. Well, they're all saying the same thing in slightly different ways. But the fact is, Bankei's core teaching was the unborn mind. The unborn mind, which he also called the Buddha mind, or the unborn Buddha mind. And Bankei's message was simple: remain in the unborn mind. Remain in the unborn mind. And he went further than that. He said, if you can remain in the unborn mind or the Buddha mind for 30 days, you will be enlightened. Well, when I was young in my study and practice of Zen, I thought, okay, that sounds doable. All I have to do is remain in the unborn mind for 30 days and I'm going to be enlightened. Well, I see some of you grinning, so you probably know the rest of that story, which was that my 30 days lasted about 8 seconds before I was completely distracted and thinking about something. And what I discovered is, oh, not so easy to stay in this. It's an easy proposition that's very difficult to execute, right? Maybe impossible. But what's he talking about when he's talking about that unborn Buddha mind? He's talking about, does that mean that we should never think? No thinking, no thoughts. We're not going to have any thoughts. Well, that was essentially what my 8-second experiment was. I had really no idea what it meant to remain in the unborn Buddha mind. But I thought, well, it means don't think. Okay, I'm just not going to think. Okay, some of you may have done some Zazen, and you may have discovered that our minds are ceaseless random thought generators. CRTG, ceaseless random thought generators. And not that there are never periods of deep samadhi when thoughts may not be arising, but the other 99.9% of the time, we are thought generating beings. So what the heck was Bankei talking about? How can we do this for 30 days? How can we do this for 30 seconds? Thoughts always come up. Those of you who practice Zazen may have noticed this. You get there, you're all set, you're all settled in, I'm focusing on whatever it is, my breath, I'm focusing on my koan, and I'm thinking about what I'm going to have for lunch. And, you know, just happens. So, what's Bankei talking about here? This unborn mind. Well, the unborn mind, in one sense, is the mind that exists before thought. Before thought? Nah. Before narrative. We create our self, we create our identity, we create separation through narrative. It's narrative that distracts us and pulls us away from the moment, from our lives, not the momentary thought that pops through and we let it go. Right? We talk about letting go is an important practice. It is, because you're not going to get rid of thoughts, but you can get rid of your attachment to thoughts. You can get rid of the pursuit of the perpetual narrative. But Bankei's example of this, I don't like, frankly. He talks about if you're outside and you hear crows cawing, you immediately know those are crows. You don't have to think about it, and that's the working of your unborn mind. That's I don't think that's wrong, but it's just I don't know, it doesn't resonate with me in a way that's particularly useful. What I do think is useful is an example that Peter Harris used years ago about being out in the street and suddenly seeing a child run in the road and there's a car coming. And that you see that child's, in an instant, that child's life is in jeopardy. What do you do? Well, presumably you run out and rescue the child. You're not thinking, oh, should I do this or not do this? Is what, I think I want to assess the risks of running out to grab this child. I want to discern whether or not this child is worth saving or not. None of that. You run out, you grab the child, and you get them out of harm's way. Who just acted? Bankei would say that was the unborn mind. No me in that story. No individual identity, no separation between myself and the child, just the reaction. Now, this type of thing may be more common than we realize. For example, there's no way that any professional baseball player can hit a pitch that's being thrown at them at 90 miles an hour by thinking about it or even recognizing it. If they're going to be ready to hit that ball at 90 miles an hour, their mind has to be empty, has to be devoid of okay, here comes the ball, here comes the pitcher. Oh, I like this pitcher. I don't like this pitcher. He's going to throw a fastball. If you have any of that there, 90 miles an hour, that ball is in the catcher's glove before you've had a chance to blink. The only way that batter ever hits that pitch is by being fully present without creating a narrative. Another example, martial arts. Same thing. The reason martial artists, excuse me, Willie is lying on the Mumonkan. Not good, Willie. That's sacrilegious. Okay. So the only, martial arts, the reason martial artists can respond so quickly is that they repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat the motion, the activity thousands of times until thought doesn't be, when you first start out, you're starting out in brain, okay, I'm going to hold my fist this way and not this way, and I'm going to do this. But eventually, after thousands of repetitions, all that thought is gone. There's just the immediate reaction. The same immediate reaction as the batter hitting the pitch, the same immediate reaction as the person running to rescue the child that's in the street. Okay. So that's Bankei's unborn mind. It's our unborn mind. We all have it. And in fact, I think we all function in it more than we realize. And we also obscure it more than we realize with our thought narratives. And especially the most problematic narratives are the ones that I am a participant in. Literally, I like this. I don't like that. I want to have thus and such. I don't want thus and such. In all of those, and in many more, the ego stands out as the prominent feature. Me, mine, right? Mine. That's my car. That's my whatever. So even I think in the context of thought, in the context of narratives, the thought of self, the thought of me, the thought of what I want, I need, I like, is one of the most problematic. Okay. So back to the monk Mio. I lost my bookmark, so I'm not going to reread from the koan. But let's think about that koan for a minute. Most of you know the story, right? This is about Huineng, the sixth patriarch in China. And Huineng was given Dharma transmission in the middle of the night, midnight. That's why we do Dharma transmissions at midnight today. And then his teacher Obai told him to flee because the other monks would be so jealous they would literally kill him. Literally kill him. So he did. He grabbed the robe and bowl that Obai gave him, and off he went into the night. Mio goes in pursuit of him. Mio was a military man, a general, a big, strong, because in those days, being in the military, being a general didn't mean you sat in a bunker someplace looking at a screen. It meant you're on the battlefield with a sword just like everybody else, right? So he had great physical strength, great physical prowess. And he goes running after Mio. And he is enraged. And you can imagine in that moment, what is he thinking about? Is he running a narrative? Is he thinking about what he's going to have for breakfast? No, he's obsessed with one thing, catching this upstart, Huineng. And that's the moment that Huineng captures. And says, at that moment, what were what is the primal face of Monk Mio? Wow. He hadn't created his identity. He hadn't created his separation. Those are things that we create. They are not inherent, but they obscure reality. So in that moment, it wasn't obscure. It was like, he's looking straight at Huineng, and no barriers, no separation, no identity. All those things come later. All those are things that we create with our mind. There's lots of meat in this koan, and this is just one kind of aspect of it. So the answer, so that now the question might come to mind is, well, okay, if that's true, how come I'm still hanging around with this self? I'm still making other. I'm still just a deluded schmuck like I was when I got up this morning. And the answer is that we keep taking it back. It's not even conscious. We have a little glimmer. Oh, this is great. I feel great. I am back. Right? We have a moment of silence in the chat. Oh, look, I'm silent for a moment. As soon as we do these things, we're creating well, it's sort of a monologue and a dialogue simultaneously, but we're creating that, we're recreating that. Okay. So while we can't perhaps follow Bankei's idea of refraining from doing that for 30 days, although I don't want to discourage any of you that want to try that, feel free. But we can do it as much as possible. How do we do that? We focus on our life, not ourself. Focus on our life, not ourself. And we can make that shift cognitively. We can notice it. Oh, I'm sitting here ruminating about what I don't have or what I want. Oh my God, I just I was online, of course, this morning a little bit. And here it is. Oh, it's snowing again. It's beautiful out. Okay. Anyway, so everybody is marketing for Christmas already. It's early November. They've started twanging our consumer response. Right? They want to get us buying things. Well, you don't buy anything in the unborn Buddha mind. We've got to be in the realm of self and other, right? That's where they want us, in the realm of self and other. They want us all to be hungry ghosts. There are no hungry ghosts in the realm of no self and other, in the realm of Buddha mind. So we need to how do we do this? We let go continuously, as much as we can, as much as we are aware of it. As soon as we see, oh, I'm clinging. Oh, I'm worried about myself. I have to let go. Open to the reality that's around me, not the reality that's within me. It's a great universe of which I am not the center, but my ego tells me that I am. So when I open up, when I let go, in fact, there is a whole universe that's not me. There's infinite possibilities that are not me. You know, there's all kinds of new quantum thinking that talks about things like that, that in the quantum field, all these possibilities exist. But in our minds, we narrow it down. We eliminate infinite possibilities. You know, right now it's snowing out here. I love snow. Snow to me is wondrous. Everything that happens at this time of year is wondrous. Now I can run it back through my filter. Oh, well, it's not really sticking. But if it was, I could be like, oh God, now I'm gonna have to put my snow tires on. Now I'm gonna have, I'm gonna have to, cancel my plans for this afternoon because oh my God, here comes this snow. And suddenly the wonder is lost. That beautiful, unconditioned experience is gone in the haze of self seeking, self reinforcing, self relying. So, how do we stop that? We let go. Very simple, very simple. And, I was many millennia ago, I was at a retreat at Zen Mountain, and the woman who was the Tenzo at the time, Daido was doing a Mondo, a question and answer kind of thing with the Sangha. And so the woman who was the Tenzo at the time got up and asked the question. And her question was, well, how do I let go? Pretty good question, actually. Daido said, go in your kitchen and pick up a spoon and let go. Yeah, I'm not thrilled with that response, but it kind of suggests the possibility that letting go is just letting go. I think that's what he was pointing to. There's no process. You have to study it. When you catch yourself, oh, I'm thinking about this, I'm attached to that, I'm obsessing about something else, let it go. Now you may say, well, it comes right back. Yeah. So you let it go again. Every time we let go, we are freeing ourselves a little bit more. In addiction treatment, there's a phrase, de-addiction. So addiction is the process of getting reinforcement, usually in the form of dopamine, that we become increasingly dependent upon. De-addiction is every time we get one of those cues that would cause us to crave, to desire, to whatever, we don't respond to it. We let it go. And what happens over time, and this has been studied, is that the power of the addiction is diminished. The more times that we don't respond to it, the less of a hold it has over us. Well, I think it's kind of a similar process when we're talking about Zen. Those thoughts of self and other come up, and we let them go. And very slowly over time, they begin to have less and less hold over us. So that we are less and less addicted to this idea of self and other. We are less and addicted to clinging to me and my and mine and what I need, so on. And we're more and more able to experience what Bankei is talking about. That open spaciousness of the unborn Buddha mind. Thank you.
Peter, I would like to argue a little bit in favor of Bankai's example of hearing the bird compared to all the other examples you gave, including that koan. They're all these really intense moments where the intensity of what is going on, the baseball is being thrown, or the child is about to get hit by the bus, or you're chasing this person to kill them, or whatever. All these things are very intense moments that take us out of thought by necessity. Whereas Bankai's example is a completely ordinary moment where you are not in the narrative. You are having a thought. You're having a thought that, oh, it's a crow, but you're not attached to anything. Or so, like, that is more applicable to the 99.9% of our lives as an example of not being attached and being in the unborn. So I just wanted to defend Bankei in that way.
Well, to have the audacity to suggest that Bankei has a better grasp of the Dharma than Peter Wohl is pretty outrageous. Well, but I think I think you're raising a valid point. I'm choosing those examples deliberately because most people notice those things, and when the crow calls overhead, we don't necessarily notice that moment of that more subtle moment of awareness. But that's not to. I'm not disputing what you're saying. What you're saying, it makes perfect sense. I think I'm deliberately looking for dramatic examples because those grab our attention. We can relate to them a little better. The crows are kind of subtle. And to your point, and that's maybe more valid, but anyway.
And that's really one of those classic problems of all meditation where everything's fine and dandy when you're on the cushion and then you get up and go in the kitchen and all, gone. Any any inspiration you've gotten, any knowledge you've received, anything. All those distractions come right in. And so the letting go part is something you'd have to do for 30 days. And yeah, not
Yeah,
bloody likely, right?
well, no, it's not, and it's probably more like 30 years. But that said, but you're absolutely right, and that's one of the reasons, like when we had the retreat recently. But that's why I emphasize that everything is practice. We kind of set a priority on sitting on the cushion. That's meditation. That's real. And then what you say, we walk out to the kitchen and we forget, right? And that's where the actual rubber meets the road in our lives. We don't spend 90% of our lives sitting on the cushion. We probably don't even spend 10% of our lives sitting on the cushion, but we're doing all these other things. We're working, we're interacting with our families, with our partners, with our neighbors, on and on and on. And that's where the Dharma has to follow us. If we have a Dharma that only works on the cushions, then it's useless. In fact, to me, that is self-serving practice. It's the practice that we export into our lives that serves others, that allows loving kindness and compassion to be manifested. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. You know, I just had an example yesterday in my life, but I think it's points up to the kind of quandaries that we're faced with it on a very frequent basis. So I had a young couple who were booked in to stay at my campsite on my property here, and they were supposed to arrive at about 3:30 in the afternoon. And so I made we had a little thing here in town last night. It was very nice. They did a thing where you came and you made a little donation that went to the food bank, and you got a bowl of soup, an apple, and a piece of bread. It was a little community dinner, and you got to bring your bowl home. Beautiful. It was beautiful. This group of neighbors in the community spent all summer decorating the bowls. Were already fired, but they decorated them, and they had them there. They literally had enough bowls to give out anybody wanted to have one. So it was such a sweet event, and I was really excited to go. Well, I am, for a lot of reasons. I don't really know anybody here, hardly. And so the opportunity to get out, to meet neighbors, to be in community, to not just be sitting in my cabin with Willie, as lovely as that is, I was quite excited about it. And it was a good cause. It would help the food bank right now at a time when food banks need all the help they can get, and so on. Well, long story short, over this couple were over 2 hours late. And the thing was running from 4:30 to 6, and they didn't get here until after 5:30. Now, the things that were going through my head at that time were not loving and gracious. And I had to do a lot of letting go to get out of my agenda. My agenda was to get to the food bank, the food dinner. This young couple coming, sweet. They was just, I met them. They were students at the College of the Atlantic. Really nice young people. All the people I get to come here to stay are really nice people. And they were no exception. And I don't know what they had driven all the way from Rhode Island yesterday, and I have no idea what tribulations and trials they had, but anyway, so I had to and it was difficult letting go of Peter's crap. Peter was annoyed. Peter wanted that fucking bowl of soup and his apple, But I think we face these things all the time. And this is the challenge of the Dharma. I could have said something really cruel and uncaring if I had allowed my mouth to move before I did a lot of letting go. And these very nice young people would have been hurt. And that would have been very unfortunate. Then it turned out at 10 o'clock at night, I got an email from them. One of them, I guess, had a medical emergency, and they actually had to leave in the middle of the night. I don't, but anyway, that's another story. But so I think this is so practical. It's something that comes up in our lives all the time. We can be so easily triggered into that self-centered space, that I space, that me space, what I need. They're fucking with me, And that's how everybody's seeing the world these days, right? It's like, well, the conservatives, all those liberals are fucking with us, and the liberals, all those conservatives are fucking with us. It's about me. It's about my feelings. And instead of being in a vast and open universe, we are instantly in the most tiny, closed, cloistered, self-centered environment.
And hopefully that's when the crow flies overhead and goes caw caw.
Well, I've been trying to train them to do that, but they pretty much ignore me. Actually, I do talk to the crows. Occasionally they answer me back. But my crow is not very good, so they mostly ignore me.
So, Peter, thank you very much for this talk. The simplicity of it and the examples, um, it, the idea of letting go, let go, let go, let go, um, has been brought to the forefront for me this morning. Um, uh, I don't remember the koans, but Peter Harris and I were working on koans at one of the Zen retreats. And I had no recognition that actually there were moments in my life that um, I I had let go. Moments that were just acting, not thinking. Um, and through the work I did with him and him pointing things out to me, I recognized that, of course, those things happen in my life when I'm acting, not thinking. Um, I really want to thank you for letting us know what happened with Tyson this morning and how you felt, because you did express that. Um, to me, what you were saying was you felt not respected, which is a painful feeling. And it was really important for me to hear that because I don't want anyone to feel that way. And I've gotten kind of lazy about Tyson. So thank you for reminding me of that. Thanks. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, there is far too much guilt in the world, and I try to do my best to avoid contributing to that, but every so often I open my big mouth and I do. And this was, I guess, one of those instances. I don't want anybody to feel guilty or badly or, shame. We've got whole religions that are dedicated to that, and Zen is not one of them. So I assume you're here because you don't like it any more than I do. So, let go, let go, let go. And I actually apologize that I even brought the subject up.
I like that you're human, Peter. I like that you're human.
Well, I've tried to escape it, but it just doesn't, it just doesn't happen. It's and that's, by the way, why those many of those crazy clouds. It's many years since I read that book. Manfred Steiger and somebody else were the authors of it, and but well, of course, the most human of that crew was Ikkyu. People familiar with Ikkyu? Okay, well, a bit controversial, we might say, in this day and time. Much beloved in Japan, on the other hand. Ikkyu was a Zen master who spent most of his time drinking sake and inhabiting brothels. and in fact criticized his fellow monks for wasting their time on the cushions. But he was also an extraordinarily clear proponent of the Dharma and controversial. Anyway, but human, So that's we've talked recently about some of the human failings that some of our teachers have had, and I certainly have my share. Nothing we do in this process eliminates that humanity and our capacity to do foolish, thoughtless, careless, harmful things, unless we're really paying attention. Again, back to the point of this thing. And as you know, I don't like the mindfulness word. I think it's way overused and really misunderstood. But if we just say instead paying attention, we need to pay attention. We need to pay attention to our actions. We need to pay attention to our thoughts. We need to pay attention to our relationships. We need to show up and be there and be conscious because we are human.
Peter, I sometimes wonder if the physical location of treetop is one of the hindrances to attracting blue collar, bobs. If a sangha can be more open if they're in a more populated place, like in the middle of a city. Because a lot of, some people don't have cars. They can't drive to a lovely Zen center.
Well, I think it's not just that, but it's in, treetop is sort of it's not in the country, it's in a sort of an affluent suburban area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that may be forbidding to some people also, I sort of had an experiment along those lines many, 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 many years. I wasn't a teacher yet, but Steph and Margaret had given me limited teaching authority to start a group. And I started a group. Where did we start sitting? Oh, it doesn't matter. I think it's the Episcopal Church has a center right in downtown Augusta. So I started a city, and I knew a few people that I was working with, people that were struggling with addictions and mental health issues. And they were curious about Zen. I said, "Do you want to come sit?" And they said, "Yeah." So we had what we called the Monkey Head Sangha.
Oh, Nick, yeah.
Yeah, that's how Nick came about, right? Mm-hmm. So and that was their name, not mine. They liked that idea that they were monkey heads. It actually went on for a fair amount of time. Now it was absolute chaos. It was, it was like I get everybody to sit maybe for like 10 minutes, if that, and then I'd go to do Daishan, and I knew what happened as soon as I went into the Daishan room. Pandemonium, people are talking, walking around. It's just like nobody's sitting zazen, And I also think that what that's making me think right now is like, okay, maybe we also have to rethink our expectations for people who are new to Zen. And say, okay, here you are, you're coming in, your life is chaos, you're living in poverty, you're struggling with all these things. Sit still for 25 minutes. And what's in their head? When we're talking about people who have trauma, people who have mental illness, people who have, there's a saying in addiction recovery, that your own mind is a bad neighborhood. Well, their mind is a bad neighborhood. Trauma is living there, pain is living there, suffering is living there, anger, all that. So the minute they stop, are they feeling peace? Are they feeling gratitude? Are they feeling loving kindness? No, they're feeling all the pain and suffering intensified. I'm glad you raised that whole thing, Deborah, because I hadn't really thought that through before. It's like, oh, we're asking people to do something really ridiculous and impossible. Sit with your suffering when your suffering is so intense.
Right. And then the other thing, again, getting into those environments, it's not necessarily that they've got an extra bedroom or a spare closet that they can sit quietly and have a little meditation space. I mean, we know people with families and kids, it's chaotic. It might be noisy, in the building, and yeah, it doesn't lend itself, much less, yeah, the distractions are everywhere on a good day.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So those are at least, I think it would be interesting to time have like a little workshop or discussion or something to figure out how to make Zen more accessible to a larger audience, not just college educated, middle class kinds of folks. Because I think we're failing. We're failing with people of color. I mean, we can all point to, oh, there's that teacher who's black skinned, or there's that teacher who's brown skinned, but they're the exceptions. There's 100 white teachers for every brown skinned teacher or black skinned teacher, And so, yes, there are people who with color who practice, but I don't think they may be like a 1% minority, tiny, tiny, tiny.
To me, that's a fascinating idea. So I guess mindfulness, you do need to sit and be quiet and all that stuff, but Zen is not mindfulness. But it does come from this monastic tradition in which people could just sit there and everybody sits together and they're all quiet. But maybe that's not actually part of the core of what Zen is, and there could be a variant that actually reaches into the world of activity more and chaos more. It's a very interesting thought.
Yeah, it's something maybe we should explore sometime. Years ago I went to Phoenix to do a project teaching nonviolence to gang members and sort of pre-gang members, the younger kids. But we used the medium of martial arts. We didn't say sit still and meditate, but we had something where they were moving, where they were active. But then we also introduced discipline. We also introduced a certain degree of mindfulness. We also, so on and so forth. So, I think if we ever explored the question, there are skillful means available. But to your point, I mean, would it look like monastic Zen? No, it probably wouldn't look at all like monastic Zen.
Is the Zen Peacemakers an attempt to address that whole question by going to Auschwitz, by going to Rwanda?
Yes and no. I mean, Deborah, I would love to go on some of those retreats. I can't afford them. It's $3,000-4,000 to go on any of those Zen Peacemakers retreats. They were going out to the reservations in South Dakota. I thought, oh, I'd love to go there. I looked, it was like, $2,000 before my travel expenses and everything else. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just another thing. The idea is great, but what's happening is you have upper middle class people going and visiting these
true.
places as opposed to people who are indigenous to them, getting
money.
But the concept, I mean, Bernie was a brilliant guy, and he had some brilliant ideas. And the street retreats were an interesting idea. But again, the people that were impacted by it were, by and large, upper middle class New Yorkers who could afford, time off. Who can go to a retreat for a week? Who's got to make a living in a blue collar context?
Yeah.
And if you do get 2 weeks vacation a year, are you going to spend it at the beach with your family, or are you going to spend it sitting on a cushion with a bunch of old farts? So I mean, the whole model is unfortunately, I think, off-putting to a lot of ordinary folks. All right, everybody exhausted? That's a good point to. I don't know, Gary, you look deep in thought. Do you have?
Nothing more to say, but yeah, I'm thinking about what we're saying.
No, so like sketching the beard. It's like, oh, he must have something he's cooking up there. Okay.
Creations are numberless, I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to put an end to them. Reality is boundless, I vow to perceive it. The enlightened way is unsurpassable, I vow to embody it. Creations are numberless, I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to put an end to them. Reality is boundless, I vow to perceive it. The enlightened way is unsurpassable, I vow to embody it. Creations are numberless, I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to put an end to them. Reality is boundless, I vow to perceive it. The enlightened way is unsurpassable, I vow to embody it.